Give that a second to do the thing. Focus on my face, thanks. Hello and welcome to the Freakish Lemon video podcast. I am your host, the Freakish Lemon. I go by Adrian and I use masculine pronouns. Welcome any new viewers, thank you so much for clicking on whatever you clicked on to get here, and welcome back any returning viewers. I really appreciate that you're sticking with me for this podcast thing. This is a crafty type podcast coming to you from the Northwest Hills of Connecticut, and show notes for this episode and all episodes can be found at my website at freakishlemon.com or freakishlemonpodcast.com. We also have a group on Ravelry. Just search Freakish Lemon in the groups tab and you will find us there. And you can follow me at all the fun places like Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and Ravelry as Freakish Lemon. All the links to all these things will be in the down bar here on YouTube or somewhere around here if you're watching this somewhere else. And if you are here on YouTube and you want to know when these videos come out, please consider hitting that little subscribe button down there, maybe even that notification bell, just so you know when I post new episodes, and then you can watch them, and that makes me feel good inside. I am filming this on Sunday, July 30th, 2017. It's warm. And for some reason my camera is filming this with like warm light. Usually I'm more blue-white light with the studio lights. I don't know what it's doing. Maybe it's just because I'm in this weird dark corner in my room. Yeah, it's a smidge different than the previous recording location, but I'll talk about that in a minute. First things first, podcast stuff. 2 alongs that are currently going. 2017 blanket make-along. Making blankets in 2017. You do not have to have started it in 2017. You don't have to finish it in 2017. You just have to work on a blanket in 2017. There's a chatter/encouragement thread that I will be drawing prizes from quarterly over at the Ravelry group. Come join us and get some, talking about blankets and encourage each other to actually put some time in on those 10-year-long projects. Yeah. Blankets are freaking great, and I love making them. And many of us have one on the go. The other thing that's going on is Sith and Spin. I'll use the title sequence later on in the podcast. But that's Spin Along from June 1st to August 31st. We're at the end of July, so we got 1 month to go. Please consider joining it if you like Star Wars and you like spinning. All you have to do is spin something while partaking in Star Wars something. So watch a Star Wars movie and spin a little bit. That's all you gotta do. To enter, post a picture of your spinning and a Star Wars thing that you're watching, listening to, reading, whatever. Please come join. The end of August will be here faster than you think. That's really it for podcast stuff for right now. Life stuff. It's been a little while since my last episode. I think it's been 3 weeks. I meant to film one last week and then it just didn't happen. So I have a little bit more stuff here than normal, so bear with me as I ramble a smidge. First bullet point, we had a heat wave and then a cool down. The weather, you guys, it's wreaking havoc with my sinuses. It's trying to kill me. So we had a heat wave where it was over 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 32.2 Celsius. It was like 4 or 5 days. And then it immediately went to a drastic cool down to 60 Fahrenheit, which is like 16.5 Celsius. Those days were freaking amazing. It was like, is autumn here in July? No, it's back up to like 80 today. I didn't look up what that is in Celsius, but it was so nice for those few days. There was like rain, which was nice. We tend to not get a lot of rain in the summer, but it was raining and cold, and like I needed to put on a jacket to take the dog out at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was amazing. It was amazing. And now it's back to regular summer weather, which is not so amazing. Humid, too warm to live. I mean, today's not that bad, but it's gonna get warmer. August is the worst month of the summer up here, so it always makes me sad. Bullet point number 2. My hands. Still not 100% on my hands. About a month and a week-ish, 5 weeks, I hurt my hands, and they were getting better, and I think one of those days I pushed it a little too far because my hands weren't hurting, and they were very, very sore the next day. Not fun. I no longer wake up with my hands sore, typically, which is good. I have been able to do longer stretches of knitting, and by longer, I mean more than 15 minutes at a time. The other night, I did 40 minutes of knitting at once, and then immediately, as soon as I hit that 40-minute mark, I put everything down so I wouldn't overdo it. I'll talk about it a little more as we go into the different projects that I've been working on because of my hands, but they're definitely healing. This hand, I think, is pretty much done healing. It's this hand, because this is my dominant hand. I still have some twinging up the thumb. That still happens. But, much, much better than it was. And I'm watching how I use my hands and how much I'm using my hands, because I do not want to be in that position again. It is awful not being able to do handicrafts when that's all your brain wants to do. It's terrible. Bullet point number 3, craft party. Last weekend, 2 of my friends, they're twins, had their birthday party, and they decided to have a kind of chill craft party, which was super awesome. We got together at another friend's house and just hung out and did crafts. Like, they had bought some of those craft kits, like friendship bracelets and dream catchers and stuff, and Erin brought a whole bunch of her beading supplies, because she does a lot of jewelry making, and stuff. She has an Etsy shop. If I remember, I will go find it and put a link in the show notes. And I brought some spinning to do. And we just kind of hung out and watched Pride and Prejudice and had food and cake and brownies. And then, yeah, it was lovely. I did want to show you guys this before we get into the majority of the craft stuff, because Erin had all her beading supplies, so I made myself some stitch markers. Let me get these arranged. Lots of people were making jewelry. I don't wear jewelry. So here's some stitch markers. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus on them. Nope. Nope, they're moving too much. My hands are shaking. There we go. So just 4 of these circular beads and 2 skull beads on this really neat, like, turquoise wire. Sorry, I can't make them stop. I keep trying to hold it steady, but it's not working. Yeah, they're really super nice. It was really cool of her to let us use some of her beads and stuff, and they're actually really nice because she invests more in materials than I do. Because I have some beading stuff, but it's like minimal beading stuff. But these are really cool stitch markers, and it's really cool that we got to just like hang out and just make stuff and talk. And as soon as this podcast is done, these stitch markers are going on my sweater project because I want to see them all the time. And bullet point number 4, I moved some furniture around in this corner. This printer, I don't know if you've been able to see the whole setup in previous episodes, but it was on an old nightstand that had been deteriorating for well over a decade. Like, the particle board was splitting and slowly disintegrating. And I wasn't really keeping anything in it anymore because I've done a lot of rehaul in this room, getting the new craft room, and just, you know, getting rid of some old stuff that I was never going to use. So the only thing in it was paper and the printer on top. So I got rid of that nightstand, and I have these two little cube shelves. They're just two cubes stacked on top of each other. I have two of those that I stole from one of my brothers when he came back from college and he wasn't using them. Just kind of put them together and created a little station over here. It's a printer. There's paper down here. You'll probably seen in the intro. I don't remember if I took video of it or not, but all of my packing supplies are over here, and the books that I need to read. So next to my bookshelf, but not yet read to be put on the bookshelf yet. And it's really nice because it frees up a lot of space in this corner, which is why I'm so far back here. So all my podcast stuff is currently out of the way. I could just leave it up here for a little while if I needed to. So that's really cool. And I love rearranging things around. It just feels good in my brain. Yeah. So that's all the life stuff. I mean, there's some other life stuff that probably happened, but I'm not good at remembering things. So let's just go on to the craft stuff, shall we? Knitting stuff. I have 3 works in progress I want to talk about. The only things I've really been working on are my ongoing socks and my sweater. So let me talk about the Gin Urso socks first. I kind of put these to the sideline a little bit. I have done some work on them since you last saw them. We did go to the movies once, and I was very impressed with myself with not overdoing it in the movie theater. I would knit for like 15 minutes at a time and then just like not knit for 15-20 minutes and like off and on. So I put about 1.5 inches on these socks at the movies, which is good. And that's the Rogue One or Gin Urso self-striping yarn from Mustache Yarns. Netting them on US 0 2.0 millimeter needles, vanilla socks. But really what I've been working on, since I kind of gave myself permission to do whatever I want with socks, since I'm pretty much not going to complete the 2017 box of socks, so I've been working on the Afterthought Everything pair of socks that I had going on. So I'm knitting these socks with Legacy Fiber Arts with the Advent Calendar finish colorway, the Christmas Day Advent Calendar half skein, because my sister Gabby from the Once Upon a Corgi podcast and I split an Advent Calendar. So I had 50 grams, and this is the entirety of the 50 grams. And I'm doing cuffs, heels, and toes with just some black Knit Picks stroll fingering. I did have to add some just black to get this the right length for my foot, because these are going to be my socks, because there wasn't enough of the main color yarn to do a proper pair of socks as gift socks. So they will be my socks. But yeah, you see I've split it in half. I did the extra rows in the toe on this one, marked approximately where the heel's going to go, so I have a starting place. And I've just started the toe decreases on the other sock. So it shouldn't be long before I finish these. You'll see when I hold them up, this is the cast on edge, this is the cast off edge. It is flared out. I wanted to see what a suspended bind off would look like in ribbing. That is the bind off that I used. Is it on my Find Your Fade shawl, I think? It's a really, really great bind off for shawls. Not so great for ribbing, because you get flare. But now I know that. They're for me. I don't really care. Not that big of a deal for me. But yeah, so those should be done fairly soon, which is lovely. My hands still aren't up to knitting at work, so socks are a little slow, because I kind of want to work on other things while I'm at home. But, you know, slow and steady is better than nothing at all. And then I've been putting... Oh, I'll just knock over this entire light. I'm in a very small corner, and I just almost knocked that light over. What I have been working on is the Akiko sweater by Regina Mosimer, which I'm knitting out of Lion Brand Scarfy, which is a 78-22 acrylic wool blend in the cream and black colorways on US 8 5mm Chiaogu interchangeables. And come on. This is what it looks like right now. So I've separated off the sleeves, and I put in a lifeline at the separation in case I needed to go up another size. I did try this on a couple rows after I separated for the sleeves, and it seems to fit. I did try it on again further down. I think after there's a 4 inches of stockinette before an increase row. And I tried it on again, and it looks like it's going to fit, so I'm very excited about it. So this is the front of the sweater. This is the back of the sweater with my little egg toast stitch marker, and that's where I was the last time I podcasted. That's where that little egg toast stitch marker was. So I've put a huge chunk in this sweater. If I keep up at this pace, the sweater will be done before the end of August, which makes my heart happy because all I want to do right now is work on sweaters. It's all I want to do right now. I'm hoping I can do this sweater and then one fingering weight sweater for Rhinebeck this Kate, and so that I have either a warmish October sweater or a coolish October sweater as an option. That would be amazing. Don't know if the fingering weight sweater will happen, but I have hope. I have hope. As long as my hands keep healing and I keep not overdoing it, that would be wonderful. But I am so excited about this. I don't anticipate that this will grow at all with blocking since it's mostly acrylic. Acrylic kind of stays where it is, but, you know, it looks like it should fit. I mean, I have tried it on, but it looks like it should be a good fit once I'm done, and since acrylic doesn't really grow, I am confident in this sweater, which is a good feeling, and not something that I was with the other sweater that I knit that ended up being too small. Yes, many good feelings about this. And since the rest of it's pretty much just stockinette until the end of time, that's good things. Stockinette is easier on my hands than anything else. Like, I want to be working on my cable mittens, because that would also be a good thing to finish. But right now, the cables and the purls are a little bit too much for my hands to do a lot of them, so... stuff. Which also means I have no crochet to show you, because I haven't been doing any crochet. Because crochet does aggravate my wrists if I do it a lot. Because of the twisting motion. Unfortunately. But I have a couple of cool fiber things to talk to you about. So fiber stuff. I've got 2 bullet points, and then we'll get into the spinning. What? Other fiber things than spinning? So first thing is yesterday, the 29th, I had a dye day with my mom to dye yarn. My mom recently bought a dye kit from the Woolery. I'll put a link to the specific one because I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But it comes with like 6 colors of dye, 6 or 7 colors of dye, citric acid, and a video and written directions on how to dye yarn, which is really, really cool because she's getting into yarn dyeing, and when she puts up an Etsy shop, I will tell you what it is, because that is a goal of hers. But she and I played with some over dyeing. She had a skein of yarn that she had dyed about a year ago that she didn't like and wanted to see if she could layer another color to make it something that is worth it for her. And I had 3 skeins. Well, I had 1 full skein and 2 partial skeins from the Great Dye Experiment of August 2015 that no longer work for me. And I wanted to over dye those. And I had that 1 skein of Cormo that I bought on the I-91 shop hop that I bought specifically to dye for a project. So I'm going to show you, firstly, this is the video that comes with the kit, Dyeing in the Kitchen with Deb Mentz, and this is an incredible video, and I love the exactness and the science behind her dye methods. It like makes my little math soul happy. It really does. So if kind of the nebulous nature of dyeing yarn worries you, because a lot of dyers do dye by feel, especially if it's a creative outlet for them. But if you're worried about what you're doing, because a lot of dyers do it by feel, this is totally worth it if you want to be like really exact in your color. Again, I'll put the link for the kit in the show notes, but this is incredible. I'm probably gonna buy the kit just so I have a copy of this for myself. But I'm gonna show you the finished yarn, and I'm gonna put a picture up here of what the original yarn looked like. So the first completed one I had was I over dyed this skein of yarn with blue. This took 2 go-rounds with the concentration of dye that I had. I was actually going for a little bit lighter, but the first dye coverage was a lot less even than this. So I just went with it. So this is what it looks like now. But it's a lovely, lovely blue. I'm actually very pleased with that. And I'm pleased that the little orange speckles aren't too terrible. They're just teeny little bits. But I love how this turned out. I love how every single one of these turned out, which is really encouraging. And really great with that dye method from that DVD. So this blue one. And then I took, this is a partial skein. I used a bunch of it for a bunch of other things, like mini swaps and stuff. And then I had this partial skein. Again, I used a bunch of it for mini swaps and in other minis projects. And I over dyed it with a deep red, a bluer red in the color family. And this is what came out. It's a little more brightly red on the camera than it is in real life, but that's what it looks like. It was a variegated skein, as you can see in the picture, but it just took that red beautifully. The purple that came out of this is incredible. I absolutely love it. It'll probably just be socks, but I'm kind of thrilled with how that turned out. Alright, this third one, which looks like this before, was a green that didn't grow on me. I think I liked it better directly out of the pot before it dried, and sometimes the color's different when it's wet than when it's dry. And it just wasn't, I didn't even have it marked in a project. It was just sitting there. Like, there was nothing I wanted to do with it. So I wanted to make it a green that I would like. And greens are funny because there are greens that you either love or you hate. It's like one of those colors. But I ended up with a green that I absolutely love. Again, it's a little bit brighter on screen than it is in real life, but it's like the perfect like Shire green, like frolicking through Hobbiton green. And the green it was when it was wet was the perfect Slytherin green. So either way, it's fantastic. Like if it had stayed the color it was when it was wet, it would have been perfect. This color, which is lighter and a little bit more yellow than a Slytherin green, is also perfect. And there's some yellow, because I did yellow and then green. So some of the yellow is still visible there, which I think will knit up really, really interestingly. I might, it's an idea, I might hold the yarns double and do a bobble hat. I just need to get some undyed for the white, and I have black that I can use for the faces. But I'm thinking that might be interesting. I know that's a fad that's a few years old now, but basement door is loud. But I'm thinking that might be a cool idea, because I think these make a good grass and sky. You know, with the sheep in the middle, it won't be quite so jarring. I mean, those look okay together, but with the sheep in the middle, I think that would make a really cool bobble hat color. It's an idea. We'll see what happens if I remember to pick up any undyed yarn. Well, maybe in a couple weeks. I know there's a yarn store trip planned in the next couple weeks for my mom to use her gift cards at a bunch of the I-91 Shop Hop stores. And then this is the Cormo that I bought at Sheep and Shawl in South Deerfield, Mass. And I specifically bought it to dye to make myself a pair of mittens. And I was going for fall colors. So I did a real simple yellow, orange, red for fall colors. They're a lot brighter than fall colors, but I'm still kind of thrilled with it because I'm so pleased with the yellow. This looks like it's going to light you on fire on the screen. It's not quite this bright. It's pretty bright, but it's not quite this bright. But look at this. This yellow right there is like right as it has just the smidge of orange on it, is like my perfect goldenrod yellow. Yeah, this camera is picking up the orange much brighter than it is in real life. But yeah, yellow and then some orange and then some red. I could have probably gone with a darker red to help balance this out a little bit. But I kind of love it. I kind of love what this is going to look like in a pair of mittens. Possibly also a hat. I don't know. I just think it'll look really fun with my black coat. And Cormo's so soft and bouncy, and I love it. But oh man, does this fill a dye pot. We have some of Gabby from Once Upon a Corgi's old dye pots, and this filled the bigger pot. I mean, the bigger pot's like this tall, but it filled it when it was full of water. It was so big and bouncy. But, oh, that's so exciting. And so encouraging. Just getting colors that I like out of a method that I liked to use. That's really encouraging for me. So let me get that out of the way. All these, I mean, just look at these colors. Oh, perfect. I love dyeing yarn. Takes a long time when you're just kind of figuring things out, but worth it. Definitely going to be dyeing my mystery fleece when I finish. When I'm ready to cast on the bulky sweater quantity that I have, or when I finish spinning the other stuff. definitely going to be dyeing that, especially now that I know a good way to replicate very close colors with that method from that DVD. I feel like I do this with all of the first clips for this podcast. My phone cannot record clips longer than a half hour. Stop forgetting about that. Anyway, I feel confident that I'll be able to dye the sweater's quantity and easily replicate pretty much the same color for the skeins using this method from that DVD. So that's very exciting. And one day, when I move out of my parents' house and I have control over the kitchen, because there's very specific hours that you can dye in our kitchen currently because everyone lives here, I definitely anticipate doing more dyeing. Definitely an idea. And then weaving. I warped my 10-inch Cricut loom. It's a rigid heddle loom for double width fabric. There's a really great tutorial for double width or tube fabric. I'll put a link to the YouTube video that I used below. And I'll put a video up here of what it looks like, just because I don't want to disturb the loom and like knock one of the pickup sticks out of it. Because you need 2 heddles and 2 pickup sticks, which currently is a ruler and a pickup stick because one of them needed to be wider than the other. Not per the tutorial, but just the way I warped the loom because I'm not very good at it. Some of the strands kept just slipping off one of the pickup sticks, so I just stuck a ruler in there instead. It's definitely interesting. I think I've got the rhythm down now. So hopefully, you know, as I sit down and work on it for a few minutes at a time, weaving's not really my thing. But I want to see how this fabric turns out. I really like how it's looking with the different scrap yarns. So that's definitely that's definitely an idea for the future with other scrap yarns instead of doing 50,000 scrap blanket projects. I mean, I'll probably still do 50,000 scrap blanket projects, but it's a great way to use up leftover yarn. I just gotta think of things that I can do with my woven fabric other than scarves. But the fabric that I'm weaving now, I'm hopefully, once I'm done weaving it, be making it into a couple of project bags. I think that would be really interesting, but we'll see what happens when I take it off the loom and what it looks like and all that. Which brings us to Sith and Spin. Alright, I haven't been doing a heck of a lot of spinning since I hurt my hands, because that's one of the things that I was doing to hurt my hands. But I am easing back into spinning with some relatively easy on the hands spinning projects. So the first thing I started doing, it's in this Star Wars bag, is I started spinning some of those silk hankies that I got from Gabby's D-Stash. Because silk you can pre-draft before you spin it, so you don't have to do a lot of that pinching motion as you're spinning the thing. You can just kind of hold it. And a lot of the drafting with the method that I'm using, you take a sheet, you poke a hole in the middle, and then you just stretch it out until it's about the width that you want, and then break it. So I'm aiming for something like that. So that's what that looks like. I did finish up a cob. I made a mini skein at the birthday party I went to. So that's what it looks like. It's just a 2-ply, oops. Focus on that, please. I did an Andean ply bracelet and 2-plied it back on itself. Yeah, really easy to do once I got going. Unfortunately, my hands are always dry, so it always sticks to my skin. But that's not really an avoidable thing for me. But nice and easy to spin because you do the drafting with your entire hand, and then you just go. So that's a good way to ease back into the drop spindling. And then this past week, I sat down at the wheel. I took off the bobbin I was working on, and I started lock spinning from my collection of gray and black locks that will eventually be turned into a cloak mantle. Because you don't have to do a lot of control to your spinning for lock spinning. At least not the way I do it. I kind of like the locks just kind of doing their own thing, as long as they're all attached to each other. A lot of this is very overspun. I do have a problem with overspinning the locks because sometimes they just don't grab each other with the way I'm spinning. But with the overspinning, it kind of locks them in. But yeah, so I've done between 1/3 and 1/2 of my bag of locks. And I love it. I'm learning that these darker ones are mohair locks. They're a lot slipperier than these gray ones, which are the Cotswold locks. Now, some of these black ones might also be Wensleydale locks, but those ones are much smoother, so they don't grab as much as the Cotswold locks. I love spinning the Cotswold locks. I really do. They just grab and you're good. But yeah, I finished this the other day. I'm just letting the twist settle in it. Then I will finish this up. I'll probably keep spinning on this for a little while just to get my hands used to spinning again. And then I'll go back to my sweater quantity of Cormo. We do have one finished object for this podcast, and that is in sewing stuff. I showed you last episode that I had been, was it last episode? Episode before, that I had been working on my Halloween quilt. Yes, last episode. This is the quilt that I pieced my machine, and then my sinuses made that sound different than what I said. It was pieced by machine. Oh, my sinuses. They just want to rebel and like suck the entirety of my head into them. It's terrible. Anyway, pieced by machine and then hand quilted and then finished the way I would finish a normal quilt. Well, I finished it. I finished my Halloween quilt. I am so happy about it. So, I don't have the book over here. This is the pattern Pioneer Blankets in the Weekend Quilter, which is a Reader's Digest compilation of really great beginner quilt patterns. Like if you've done your simple sew the squares together, you've made a quilt. That book's a great next step. This is the Pioneer Blankets pattern. I believe I already said that. So it's mostly regular squares with diagonal lines of these 9-patch squares. I did hand quilting X's in all of the squares. It's really hard to see on the big ones, especially if they're in a darker fabric or a busy fabric, because it's just one line of thread, but you can see it pretty easily in the 9-patch. So in the ditch for every single seam, including all the seams in the 9-patch, and then an X in each square. And then to finish it off, I made black bias tape with just some black cotton that I got for half price at Joann's. And just bound it with this black. So I don't really have any pictures of it finished or anything yet because I finished it yesterday. So here's the idea of what it looks like. It's a little smaller than a twin. I haven't measured it. But the quilts in that book are about a twin size, around a twin size quilt. So that's the front. And then the back, wow. That is a big truck. The back is just these hodgepodge bits of the fabric that I had left over so I could maximize my Halloweeniness. And then something that I did on this quilt, and I want to start doing on more quilts that I make, because this is nice and easy. Sorry, kicking the camera. A lot of quilters, if they do quilts routinely, will basically put a signature or a label or something on them so that they know when they worked on them. Or like if they give them as a gift, that's who it's by and when they made it. So what I did on this quilt, is it on this side? No, it's on this side. Yep. So what I did is I just took the thread I was using to sew the back binding on. I just did my initials and the year, which was super easy and took less than 5 minutes. Because it doesn't have to be neat, it just has to be fairly legible. And I think I'm going to use that from now on when I finish quilts. Because, oh my god, this quilt was a lifesaver when I couldn't knit. I just worked on this all the time. And this quilt, it did for me what knitting also does for me, which is repetitive action that I can do with my hands, physically making something, because I love making things. It's like a core part of my personality. Like, I was one of those kids who would just glue popsicle sticks together in weird shapes just to have something to do because I needed to make a thing. But also playing with color. I don't dress in a lot of color. I put color everywhere else. Bikers. And lately I have been... Other people have been saying this on the podcast, and I don't know if it's a... I don't know what it is. I don't know if we're feeding into each other's desires for fall and Halloween and cold weather, or if that's just a New Englander thing, because all New Englanders hit that point at some point during the summer. We all do it. If you are a New Englander, like in your bones, you do end up with that feeling. But yeah, lately it's been, I want to knit sweaters. I've been drinking pumpkin spice teas. It's like I just crave autumn right now. In like a really visceral way that isn't typical for this point in the summer. August, always get that feeling in August and through September, because it's so warm through September. But I'm really feeling it, especially the Halloween, like, probably partially because I'm not making a new costume this year. I kind of alternate years for when I make a new costume or reuse a costume. It's a reuse a costume year. But I'm just feeling Halloween. Feeling it. So finishing my Halloween quilt is like the best thing in the world. Also, can I just talk about that feeling? I talked about it on Instagram, not very coherently at all. but there's a feeling that you get when you quilt, okay? Because you make your quilt sandwich, you've got a really big bottom layer, a kind of smaller quilt layer, and then your quilt top on top, so that if it shifts when you're quilting, you're not like off the edge and then have to redo everything. But there's a moment when you finish all the quilting and you trim off all the excess fabric and you have clean edges and you just pick up your quilt. There's this incredibly satisfying moment when you fold it for the first time. Whether it's got binding on it or not, you just fold it for the first time, like, this is a real tangible object all of a sudden. Like it was before, but before it was a project. And when you trim off the edges, it suddenly becomes its own thing, not just a project. It's an incredible feeling. I would highly recommend trying a quilt once if you have any interest at all in sewing, because that's the greatest feeling. And quilts never have to be perfect, because that's not the point of a quilt. The point of a quilt is to take a whole bunch of fabric, put it together, make a blanket out of it. That's all quilting is. By necessity at its invention. But, you know. Oh my god. Halloween. I love my bats. Are they visible? Yes. I love my... I do have more of this bat fabric, which... Oh, I love this bat fabric. I love this fabric. It's like my favorite. They're just... It's... Joann's has their Halloween fabric out. I almost bought some when I went to go buy the black, but I was like, no, don't do it yet. You don't know what you're doing for Halloween things yet. Oh my god. It's just wonderful. I am so pleased this is done. I'm going to put it on my bed when this podcast is over. I don't care that it's July still. I will have Halloween quilt on my bed. I love it. Now I have to remove it from my person so I can finish talking. New stuff. I do have some new stuff. Oh god, my self-control is gone. I got more stuff coming. That stuff was impulse. I cannot knit. I must, oh god, contribute to my projects somehow. And I bought more, but it hasn't come in yet, so we're not going to talk about it this episode. We are going to talk about my haul when I went to Village Wool in Glastonbury. This is one of the shops we went to on the I-91 shop hop. It was the first shop we went to, so we actually didn't end up buying as much there as we wanted to, but we had both turned to each other, me and Mom, and said, we are definitely coming back here, and I was like, I am definitely buying a sweaters quantity here when I have money for a sweaters quantity here. And on their newsletter, they had, I think it was a 2-week sale going on, where they provided you with a medium-sized plastic bag. So it was like, you can't see it in the frame. It was a little bigger than this picture frame. It was a pretty big bag. You know, box bottom. It was a pretty big bag. If you filled the bag with regular priced yarn, that bag was half off. The entire bag was half off. So I went, I'm gonna get that sweaters quantity. Well, I wasn't initially gonna go there, but my mom was like, I need to buy yarn for upcoming projects. Do you want to go with me? Please say yes, because this is a good deal. Type of, do you want to go to the yarn store? And we dragged Gabbers too. But she was very good. She only got one skein and it was half off, so that's fine. She talked about it in a previous episode. Probably 2 episodes ago now. But I went and I got my sweaters quantity, plus contributing to another sweaters quantity. So, not the first thing, but the most easy thing to pick up are these 2 skeins of Classic Elite Yarns Mohawk wool. It's in the Fog colorway. This is the wool that's 60% merino, 30% Romney, 10% nylon. I have 4 skeins of black in this, which I have a sweater pattern in mind, and there is some color work along the yoke of the sweater. And this gray would go brilliantly with it to be the top of the sweater. So I stuck it on top of the bag. I squished it into the bag. It made it in the bag. I'm good at Tetrising yarn purchases. So definitely bought these two. Well worth it. It's half off. Half off these games. Well, the full price of these is $23 a skein. So half off was good. So it was $23 for two of them. And then my real sweater quantity is out of this yarn. Classic Elite Yarns. Classic Elite Yarns has some great yarn blends, okay? This is Blackthorn. Do I have what the color is called? No. It's color 7006. I don't know what the name of it is. But this is 50% superfine alpaca, 50% wool in this light gray. It's a bulky weight yarn. So I bought 13 total skeins, which looks like this. It's a lot of yarn that I crammed into a bag about that big. It was amazing. One of the ladies who wandered into the shop was looking at me funny because I was literally just pulling these off the shelf to count them. I was just dumping them on the floor. I'm like, these are gonna be mine, so I don't even care where they end up. They have 13 skeins to approximate the yardage I need. I don't know exactly what the yardage I need is, but I figure at Classic Elite Yarns I can get a hold of more if I need to. It is a bulky weight yarn. But I have to use smaller needles for yarn anyway to get good gauge. So I might look up a worsted weight cable or a worsted weight sweater pattern that has at least some cabling in it. Because I have a bunch of those. Like I have some in the Rib magazines, and I have some in my queue. There's one in Rib magazine, I can't remember what it's called, but it just has like a texture detail right here. It's in a contrasting yarn in the sweater, or not contrasting, but a different color yarn in the sweater, but I think that would look great in just this gray. So I might, yeah, just swatch with whatever size needles for a worsted weight sweater and just size down however many sizes I need to. I do have some leeway with that because I usually wear a large because of the width of my shoulders. So there's usually a couple sizes that I can maneuver with if I end up... I'll have to do some math, but I feel confident that I can manage it. And if not, I can always knit a bulky sweater. But it's very soft, and it'll make a very comfy sweater. Worth the purchase. Altogether, half off, those 13 skeins plus the other two was a little bit over $100. So if you think about that, at full price, that would have been close to a $200 sweater. Well worth that sale for a sweater's quantity in a big weight yarn. Oh, goodness. And then, oh, now I got yarn fluff all over my face. And then I got a Once Upon a Corgi Series of Unfortunate Events Club colorway. As per usual, I will tell you when I'm going to show the yarn. I won't say a thing about the color. I'll just show it to you. And then I will put it away and let you know in case you don't want to be spoiled for the A Series of Unfortunate Events Club colorways. I think we're getting close to the end now, which is... It'll be weird not to be buying them every month. But there have been a lot of them. I still haven't used most of them. But yeah. I mean, I'm glad to be supporting my sister, and I love A Series of Unfortunate Events, so. So this is on the Audrey base, which I think is going to be changing soon. But the Audrey base it's on is the 80/20 Superwash BFL nylon, and the colorway is Snow Scout. And if you don't want to see what it is, I'm going to be showing it now. Oops. Just dropping the yarn. No big deal. I really like that skein. Oh, I've put it away. It's gone. You can look now if you were not looking. Yeah, I really like that skein. It'll probably just be socks, but I do really like that skein. Unless I can use it as like a contrast in something with something else. I don't know, but beautiful. And something that I purchased but I won't be getting for a little while is Gabby from Once Upon a Corgi was offering an Edgar Allan Poe club. I think it's a 3-month club. I did go purchase that club because we are on the same wavelength and we're both feeling Halloween. She was listening to Edgar Allan Poe, and now I'm like, oh, now I gotta listen to Edgar Allan Poe stories. I need it in my life. I gotta find that audiobook that she was listening to with the narration by Vincent Price, because that is exactly what my brain feels like right now. But I did purchase the club, so I'm forewarning you that I will be receiving those club colorways. Sometimes I get them before everybody else gets them, because Gabby is my sister, and if she's up here anyway, or we're down there anyway, she just chucks them at my face. Just wanted to forewarn you. I mean, I haven't heard anything about the Series of Unfortunate Events club colorways, the way I show them or anything, but I just wanted to forewarn you, because Series of Unfortunate Events is a pretty niche fan group. It was a popular series when it was coming out, but it's not as popular and as well known as Edgar Allan Poe. I could see a lot more people being interested in the Edgar Allan Poe yarns than in the Series of Unfortunate Event yarns. So there will be more eyes watching for those Edgar Allan Poe yarns. So just wanted you guys to be aware that I might, depending on when I put out the podcast episodes and stuff, like if she hands me a skein of yarn and that night I film a podcast episode and it goes up before she even mails them out, then I might be showing them before you get them. But just forewarning you. I'm very, very excited about these Edgar Allan Poe yarns. Very, very excited. Which brings us to other stuff, and this is going to be a long segment this week, just so you know. I mean, it's probably a long segment every week. But with my hands being injured, I've been watching and listening to a lot more things than what I normally do. So, stuff I'm listening to, I'm catching up on a bunch of audio podcasts that I let lapse. I was just not listening to audio podcasts at all for a good couple of months. So I've mostly caught up on Mabel. I think I've got 3 episodes left to go. I'm within 3 episodes of each of these. So I've been listening to Mabel, the Magnus Archives, Alba Salix Royal Physician, the H.P. Lovecraft Literary Podcast, and Archive 81, which are all ones that I've previously talked about in episodes, but are all definitely worth checking out for yourself if you've never heard of them. And I've also been binge listening to a whole bunch of new to me podcasts. Some that were in my feed to start listening to, and some brand new ones that came through on a podcast recommendation post that I saw on Tumblr. I see a lot of recommendation posts on Tumblr. Oh, I love Tumblr. Anyway, I follow some great people on Tumblr. First podcast that I binge listened to is The Strange Case of the Starship Iris, and here's a summary for that. In 2189, Earth narrowly won a war against extraterrestrials, but at a tremendous price. 2 years later, in a distant patch of space, a mysterious explosion kills nearly the entire crew of the science vessel Starship Iris. The only survivor is Violet Liu, an intrepid, sarcastic, terrified biologist. But as Violet struggles to readjust to life after the iris, questions abound. Was that explosion really an accident? If not, just what is going on? And why does every answer seem to get more bizarre and more dangerous? If Violet and her newfound allies want to untangle the truth, they'll need courage, brilliance, and luck, and honestly a couple of drinks. It's a really great podcast. Definitely worth it's like a space mystery action extravaganza. It's super great. If you're into sci-fi stuff, definitely check it out. And then I've been listening to the Oak podcast, which doesn't have a summary anywhere because all of the accounts for social media are set up in conjunction with the podcast from the point of view of the main character. So just a quick summary that I wrote myself, that this is a podcast from the point of view of, there's still a lot of questions, but she's some kind of military or intelligence agent who woke up on the streets, homeless, after her employers faked her death. So she's just trying to lay low and find out what happened to her partner. The latest episode that I just listened to, she was in contact with somebody from her employers. I don't know what agency it supposedly is. So it's not like a Jason Bourne situation quite yet, that from what I understand, but it's very interesting. And all the social media that has a part to the story, and from just skimming the social media, it's like you can get different aspects of the story if you follow her on Twitter or Tumblr, or support her Patreon. And it's all in character with the character and in character with what's going on in the podcast, which is really, really cool. A great way to use different internet tools to tell a story. And then I listened to The Girl Who Set Out to Seek a Living Wage, which is a 2-part fairy tale about a young woman on a quest through retail in search of her fortune, only to find it's being hoarded by truly terrible beasts, corporate executives. It's gay, it's fun, and it's full of fairy tale justice for the frustrated millennial. I'm incapable of speaking. It's really cute. It's told in a fairy tale style by this girl who's just looking for a job so that she can live, and she's not able to make a wage, and she's gonna go fight corporate executives, and it's very cute. And it's just a 2-parter, and it's a finished story, so if you're interested, it's definitely worth it to check it out. And then because my brain has been craving Halloween, I got 2 horror podcasts. The Blood Crow Stories, which is a serialized horror fiction podcast. And I don't know if season 1 is wrapped up. Pretty sure it's wrapped up. Or it's close to being wrapped up. But season 1 is the SS Utopia. There's a woman who hosts the show. I say hosts, but she brackets the episodes. And there's something going on between you, the listener, and her that gets creepier and creepier as it goes along. But she only speaks for a couple of sentences, and then she goes into the episode. It's about this student, Max, who's writing his psychology thesis about the SS Utopia, which was a ship built during World War II to get people away from the war, and a psychologist on board was having people on the ship record themselves, their thoughts and their feelings, their everyday lives, so that he could get a sense of the psychological impact of being on this ship. It was a self-sustaining ship. It was experimental, and they wanted to see if that would be an option, you know, depending on the outcome of World War II. And some creepy stuff starts to go down with the tapes, and it's really, really fascinating, but super spooky. Spooky. It takes a while to get spooky. You start getting the weirdness in, I want to say, like 5 or 6 episodes. You start to really get the inklings of the weirdness. But it's really well told and well acted. It's really great. And then I've just started the Black Tapes. I think I'm 5 or 6 episodes in on the Black Tapes, but I'm hooked and I'm going to listen to the whole thing. The Black Tapes is a bi-weekly podcast from Pacific Northwest Stories and Minnow Beats Whale, and is hosted by Alex Regan. The Black Tapes is a serialized docudrama about one journalist's search for truth, her enigmatic subject's mysterious past, and the literal and figurative ghosts that haunt them both. So ghost stories. A little bit of investigative journalism with ghost stories. Super great. But you know, all warnings for horror associated with ghost stories applies. Creepy spirits, demonic possession, all that kind of creepy horror stuff looks like it's going to be a part of this podcast. I have hit points where there are episodes where I had to stop it because it was getting dark out. But I'm easily frightened because I have an overactive imagination and anxiousness in general. So I know that about myself. I listen to those things in the daytime. But yeah, super good. I'm excited to keep listening to it. It sounds really, really good. I mean, it's, from what I've listened to already, it's really good, but I'm excited to get further into this story and to start uncovering and asking really interesting questions about the subjects that Alex is investigating. And stuff I'm watching, Game of Thrones is back on, so I'm watching that. There's been some really good stuff this season already. We're like 2 episodes in, and like Daenerys' War Council was incredible to look at. And I'm really loving Arya's story right now. I'm really excited to see where her story goes. Because we're in uncharted waters. This is the second season past the books now. So anything could happen, which worries me. But I think my expectations for character survivability are at a reasonable level due to reading these books and watching this TV show. So I'm excited about what's to come. And then I've been watching, I don't think any new episodes have come out since I watched it, but I think there's 6 episodes out. It's a YouTube series called The Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo. Yeah, it's, the dialogue in that show is fantastic. It's all delivered like deadbeat, straight-faced, rapid-fire, just like dialogue. So you just find yourself barking out laughing because you didn't expect some weird line coming. It's hilarious. And then Netflix has added a whole bunch of new stuff lately, and there's 2 comedy shows on there, as in comedians on stage performing, that are new that I really, really enjoyed. The first one I watched is Aditi Mittal, I think is how you pronounce her name. I'm not entirely sure, she said it so fast. Things they wouldn't let me say. She's an Indian comedian, out of India. She does some of the show in not English. I don't know what she's speaking. I'm terrible, and I didn't look it up. But there's subtitles for it. It's super funny. I know there's stuff that culturally I don't understand. There's Indian in-jokes there that I didn't understand, but it is still really, really funny. I was laughing the whole time. She cracked me up. The spelling of her name and the show will be in the show notes, so you can go look it up yourself if you have access to Netflix and you want to watch it, but she was hysterical. And then I watched Hassan Minhaj. I'm not sure I pronounced that right either. His name is also an Indian name. Homecoming King. He's American-born son of Indian immigrant parents, and that plays an important part of his show, which, that's a ride. That show goes hilarious, like, poignant and serious, hilarious, poignant and serious, hilarious, like, is a great, great show. He structures that show so it flows so nicely, ups, downs, ups, downs, ups, downs, high note at the end. It's fantastic. Definitely check that out on Netflix. And then stuff I'm reading. My reading's been kind of off and on. I'm still listening to Heir to the Empire, Book 1 of the Thrawn Trilogy by Timothy Zahn, audiobook narrated by Mark Thompson when I do get to spin or weave, if I'm not in the middle of a podcast, so I can sit and spin, which is going well, but I'm not blowing through it the way I was before. But I have been reading on my breaks at work since I'm currently not knitting on my breaks at work, so I have been making progress in Dreams from the Witch House, which is a short story collection written by female authors of about the Cthulhu mythos, H.P. Lovecraft universe type stuff, put together by Dark Regions Press, which is really good, and feeding into that whole, Halloween brain, because I always listen to the Call of Cthulhu when it starts to get cold out, driving in the dark. Probably not a great time to listen to the Call of Cthulhu, driving alone in the dark, in the woods where I live, in New England, where all the things happen, because Lovecraft was a New Englander, so important things happened in New England, because he was a New Englander. But yeah. Really, really great stuff, really great Lovecraftian stuff, and very different. I really like the perspective that these women are putting into these Lovecraft stories. These feel, honestly, they feel more real than Lovecraft's stories, because Lovecraft had a very limited narrator experience. His narrators were pretty much all the same dude, a lot of the time. So getting these wildly different stories, usually about and from the perspective of women, is really, really cool. And then my fanfic recommendation of this episode, continuing with Not Star Wars, because I said I would. I gotta dig for the next episode, but this is a really good one, and it's a recent one. It's called Descanso by Cats Are My Boyfriend. And there's no summary on this fic, but it's an X-Men fic in the X-Men movie universe. It's after the events of the most recent movie, Logan, and it's about Laura, the girl, in the movie, and hopefully none of this is spoilers for that movie, because I'm sure everybody knows what happens in that movie. Who cares to know? But after the events of Logan, Laura is confident that the New Mutants will be able to take care of themselves, and she goes looking for Sabretooth, who in this fic is not dead. I don't know if he would be considered officially dead in the X-Men movies. I don't recall. But she goes looking for Sabretooth. He's alive in this universe, and in this fic, Logan mentions him a couple of times. He does not in the movie, but that's a minor thing. So in this fic, she goes to find Sabretooth, and she finds him. And it's the adventure of two disgruntled feral mutants who want to knife somebody in the face, trying to live their lives as if they're normal people. It's really, really good. Like, it does not shy away from Victor's abrasiveness and his just F you attitude and all that, and it doesn't shy away from Laura's abrasiveness and her F you attitude, which is very important because that's integral to her upbringing and part of her character, is just how much she's ready to claw you in the face. So, like, it's just the two of them trying to figure out a balance of, because he's been living in a cabin in the woods in Canada by himself, pretty much, just going into town once a month to get supplies type situation. But now he has to interact with people because he suddenly has this child living with him. He has to put her through school. She has to go to school for the first time. She has to not knife people in the face. It's really, really good. It's ongoing, but it currently has 10 chapters, so you can read a pretty good chunk of it right now. And I really like it. Just the two of them trying to navigate their relationship as family, and trying to figure out how to live in this universe that they've got, when really all they have is each other. It's very interesting and really, really good, and you should totally go read it. So that's going to conclude this episode of the podcast. I'm losing my voice. I should not wait 3 weeks to film these episodes, because then I lose the ability to film these episodes. Show notes and everything are over at freakishlemon.com or freakishlemonpodcast.com. You can find us over on Ravelry for the make-along threads and episode threads and other stuff, whatever is interesting going on over there. You can follow me as Freakish Lemon if you want to on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, or Ravelry. Tumblr's where you want to go if you want Star Wars and fanfic constantly. And the links to all these things will be on the down bar here on YouTube, or somewhere around here if you're watching this somewhere else. And if you are here on YouTube, you liked this episode, and you want to know when I'm going to post something else, go ahead and click that little subscribe button if you want. It's an option. So that's gonna do it. Yeah. That's it. Okay. Goodbye.